Real quick, let's talk about New York. Now, was the reason to go to New York because TRL, or did you go to New York and then acquire TRL?
No. I was in Chicago, and I found out on a Friday that I had booked TRL, and I had to be there on a Monday. So I had no time to research where I wanted to live. I mean, I visited New York fairly frequently, but never with an intention of living there. Funny enough, I had visited with my girlfriend at the time, I think in February, and I booked New York, or I booked MTV in June. Yeah, end of June. And there was so much stuff because I was vlogging at the time before I booked TRL that I had on camera from my trip to New York I just went back and watched that recently. I was like, I had no idea I was filming where I was going to live, literally to the block, just with no knowledge of it. But yeah, MTV came down fast and furious and quick, and it was an opportunity. Obviously, when they say jump, you say how high, and you move your life real quickly. So I did that.
Now, I know productions are quick, but Friday to Monday, damn. Yeah. I mean,
it happened
I have seen some stuff within work, yes, but like Friday within Monday?
To be clear, yeah, TRL didn't launch on the Monday. So we trialed the show in a different capacity called Summer in the City, which was interstitials. So throw to us for 2-minute packages, then commercials, back to us for another minute, 90 seconds. We did that for the entire summer. So that was pretty much from July through mid-September. Before they officially launched the show that was TRL, and that launched in October. But yeah, it was, I literally Friday found out I got it. Monday I was on TV doing an interstitial, not even chem testing, like actual, It was being broadcast. It was crazy.
Was there any was it a for sure I'm doing it, or was there any thought like, no, let me stick with, you said I'm going to do it. I want to go.
No. I mean, the story, I can make it as short or as long as you want, but when that came down, that was an unreal opportunity. I mean, I had dipped my toe into the idea of television. It was always the dream, but I had never had an opportunity fully placed in front of me. And this was that first network contract. It was a dream come true, truly.
And in reality, you said Ryan Seacrest was one of like your TV radio heroes. Sure. Really, this makes you sort of like a younger version
to some
of
degree
that,
mimicked what he did with Idol and Gladiator games before that and whatnot. Yeah, so I was paying attention to that for sure. Kimmel too, started in radio and then going to TV. So that was it was a moment. And without going into just boring you with all the details, when I first auditioned for TRL, it wasn't called TRL yet. I didn't know that it was TRL. None of us did. It was not, to my knowledge, never actually supposed to be called that. I auditioned for a show called MTV Live. And when I got the call for it, it was an MTV casting director who reached out, and she said to basically prepare for a show that's in the vein of what TRL was, but more modern. But we're kind of searching for a team of people that would mimic the modern day Carson Daly's. That's all I knew going into it. Yeah. So, when they called it TRL, I think I found out the same time the general public did, because they put it in a New York Times article that went out that morning, and I got a Google alert on my name. I had no idea. My contract didn't say TRL. It was just with MTV Networks.
Yeah, I mean, it moves like that. I mean, even the original TRL, I think, was Total Request was one show, and they morphed it with another show. So it's always so fascinating, these shows and these projects that become huge successes, and they sometimes weren't really set out to be that way, and they are. And then on the flip side, you have other things that you think are going to be huge, and they don't necessarily go that big also. Sure. I don't know what your overall opinion is of that. I guess it would be a TRL reboot. Do you feel like it was insanely successful? Do you feel like tell me about some of the talent that was there?
Sure.
Or do you feel like it kind of came, and what was the story behind it? Because I feel like it was there. Yeah. Everyone was excited about it. And I feel like it kind of just isn't there.
Yeah. Well, to call it wildly successful would be an overreach. It lasted for a season and a half, so clearly it didn't do that great. I think there was a lot of heart in it. Everyone that was involved in it was so excited, and I'm not even speaking about my co-host, which I'm extremely fond of, and I still work with Tamara Dia too, who is one of my co-hosts. She works on the Spout podcast with me, and I talk to her weekly. And I'm still really good friends with a lot of the people. But the production crew, I mean, some of our people behind the scenes were on the original TRL, so that was just crazy. Oh, nice. They were floor producers, and then now they were executive producing the relaunch. The only thing critical that I really care to say is that don't think they should have called it TRL. I think there was a huge place in the market for a show like it, but by calling it TRL, it was kind of like, okay, you're immediately making us measure up to this nostalgic legacy that, as incredible as it was, is even, you know, bigger in people's heads because it's been gone for so long that we're never going to measure up to that, even if they nailed everything. So I think that was kind of the issue. If I would have been in charge, which I wasn't, clearly, but I would have said, I would have let it lie for a season or two, and then maybe rebranded at that point after it's already, you know, seen some success. But people immediately, that I think our launch day was October, I want to say 5th or 6th or something like that. Everyone tuned in expecting to immediately be hit with goosebumps of the original TRL, and it just, there was no way it could be that, not in today's, you know, media landscape.
That, and then you do the comparison too much. You know, it's like, oh, who's the next Vanessa Manillo? It's like, you got to let Vanessa Manillo be her.
Sure.
And, you know, whoever's the next the next crop of talent. That was the thing outside looking in. It was like, wow, they got a bunch of really talented hosts that, like, this is their time to really like shine and really run the network. So the fact that it didn't go more than, I think you said, a season and a half, maybe, the naming of the show or something within the branding.
A lot of cooks in the kitchen, man. And I mean, I can't fault Viacom CBS for it either. They put an insane amount of money into it too. So sure, they, you know, you have several directors and EPs and consultants all, you know, trying to make this as big as possible. And I think everyone was just really excited about it. There was no ill intent. At no point did I ever feel like they were trying to, you know, not give it every possible shot it could have. It was just, you know, a product that I think was a little mislabeled in people's heads because, it, you know, never was it intended to be a countdown again. So that was a little confusing for people because you can't really count down music videos in a world of YouTube, right?
Things change.
There's never going to be a official countdown.
The urgency of a premiere is gone. Which sucks because those shows were good. I mean, BET had 106 in Park.
Yep.
Fuse TV had daily download, which I had been a part of for a little brief moment. So like, those shows were fun, and I still like feel like there's the nostalgia to it, but it should be ran a little bit differently. But I feel like they missed the boat on the group of talent that was there.
Well, that's kind of you to say, but yeah.
So when you were there, when TRL, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna, you know, kind of give some credit where credit is due to the producers. In a world where music videos were premiering on YouTube, they were able to secure, I think we still had 5 or 6, you know, world premiere music videos, which is crazy. I think we premiered one of Pink's songs. I know we premiered one of Why Don't We songs. So they were still getting, you know, exclusivity to it. But yeah, they were trying to design a digital show, but taking a terrestrial approach to it. And they should have done it in the reverse. They should have designed a digital show that had a terrestrial, you know, outlet as well.
So while this project eventually ends, what is it like in terms of, you move to New York specifically for TRL?
Sure.
You jump into Z100, which, I mean, that is the home of Elvis Duran. I mean, it's just, Z100 is as big as it gets in that world of radio, but you want more. Had you in that time done other television projects? Because now you're in New York, Z100 just coming from MTV. This makes sense.
Yeah.
Was there any movement in terms of your TV hosting, or did you kind of look to digital, new media, social media more so?
Sure. So Z100 and TRL happened in parallel. So when I moved to, because I was already working for iHeart in Chicago.
Okay, the next Ryan Seacrest. Look at it, I said it, and it's the truth.
Well, that's I wish my bank account reflected that. But that's, again, thank you for that compliment. And to Ryan's credit, I've met him a couple times, and he's been nothing but the sweetest person in the world to me, and just advice and just taking the time to talk to anyone, really, especially radio people. But no, Z100 happened as an effect, and shout out to iHeartRadio taking advantage of me being in New York and being a TRL talent. They said, you know, you're already doing KISS nights in Chicago, which I continue to do from New York. Well, let's get you in the studio and put you on Z100 too. So that was an insane opportunity. I mean, all of this happened, Ronnie, in a matter of 6 weeks. It was a whirlwind, to say the very least. But when TRL ended, I actually got the very, you know, unique and awesome opportunity to stay on at Viacom. So I my contract continued beyond TRL, which a lot of people don't know, because I continue to work behind the scenes quite a bit. So I was cutting my chops as a producer, as a director. I've always been a videographer and editor, but it was cool to get my official credits doing that stuff. And then I continued working with a subsidiary of Viacom called VDS, Viacom Digital Studios. So I was covering everything from red carpets to South by Southwest to VidCon. And I was doing that both on camera and off camera. So I continued to work for another year beyond TRL ending. But I was still in New York during all of that, and I was going back and forth. That had me traveling a lot. So I was, all over the place. And then after that, I worked with a couple different production companies in New York. So to your point, it was a very needed and very massive kicking of the door open that led to other opportunities. I always knew it was something I was good at, but it was extremely validating to have someone like Viacom say, hey, yeah, here's some money to do that. And you can always look back and wish for something to play out different, but when I really play out every option in my head, I don't know that it could have been any better than the way it did happen, because the way it happened gave me the name recognition. It gave a little bit of respect to my name, which was very cool to get. Whether I deserved it or not is up for debate, but I was able to move from there a little more freely, and people would pick up phone calls, and I could work with different people a little bit better, and ultimately it led to what I do now.
Yeah. I have one last question, which I'll push to the end. We'll play a game, so to speak. It's not really a game, but it's a this or a that. Since we started with MTV stuff, you're just basically going to say, which of the two choices that you rock with mostly. So since we started MTV, let's just go with a this or that. Okay, this one's just fun. This or that. Are you going with Eric Zachary of XYZ? Are you going with the TRL version you hosted, or TRL version with Carson Daly?
Oh man, that's a hard question.
And I'm interested to know how you come with the opinion on this.
I'm gonna go original TRL, but I'm taking it from the stance of a production standpoint. I like how the original one was laid out in terms of they had a built-in countdown. Then they would bring in celebrities. They would bring in musical performances. I loved what I did. I'm not, denying that in a capacity. I have critiques because I was a part of it, of how I could rewrite or be a part of that production crew. In terms of like comparing one to the other, not even talking about like the fanfare of them, I'm gonna go original TRL, man.
That's why I said games are silly. I usually don't do them, but I was like, let's try this, and that one was really funny.
That was a turn. I'll take it. All right.
Well, what I thought was, okay, obviously you're proud of what you've done, but there's another thing too, and it would be, for whoever was the, got inspired by how, your version of TRL. Like, I thought maybe you would choose, and you did, Carson Daly's version, because there's a level of like, sometimes when you see these shows that kind of put you in motion to doing, like, I want to do that. So when I see like a Carson Daly TRL, and I'm older than you, but it's like it makes it feel like, oh, I want to do exactly that. Specifically, Carson Daly's mother was from radio, and he did radio in LA first, and then got MTV. So to me, it was like very tangible. It was like, oh, I want that. I started working in radio in 2002, and I'm like, oh, I want that journey. So that's maybe why I chose it. But at first I was like, oh, this is maybe silly.
No, it's not silly. And I will say this too, credit to where credit is due as far as our version of TRL, the 2017 reboot. I think ours had a lot more moving parts than the original did. The original was a single broadcast, and it went to terrestrial, and then it was out. Ours had literally 3 to 4 iterations of the show being done a day, right? You had the terrestrial broadcast, you had the digital streams, you had a Facebook version, you had a Twitter version, you had an Instagram version, you had a Musical.ly version. And for real ones, they know Musical.ly became a small app called TikTok. That was the original name. Which, man, I should have stayed on it then, because they had a deal with MTV, and I could have probably been one of the most famous people on TikTok if I would just have stuck with it. But then they were redistributing clips, and they had the post show, the pre show. There was a lot more moving parts and a lot more of a production around the clock, I think, with the newer version, which ultimately could have been part of its demise because there was so much going on. But I have a lot of respect for everyone that I worked with, and the hours they were putting in. Man, it was nuts.